Up in the Blue Seats podcast, Jake Brown, Andrew Harts here with our guest this week. You can hear him call many of the Rangers games as their play-by-play guy on ESPN Radio New York. You also hear him on the pre- and post-game show as well. And you catch him during the day on ESPN Radio 98.7 FM on the Michael K Show, 3 to 7 p.m., and as well on the Yes Network. And if you want to hear his podcast, it is Game Misconduct. Go listen, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Let's welcome to the show for the first time, Jersey native, fellow Mets fan, Don La Greca. Don, welcome to the show. How are you?
Jake and Andrew, how are you guys? I'm supposed to give, I've watched this, so I think I'm supposed to give like a peace sign. I'm supposed to do something to signify that I belong.
Yeah, it's basically the thumbnail for the show. We need a good thumbnail where we're smiling, like with thumbs up, so Hearts could capture that.
How's that?
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. I'm wearing the Mr. Smile Lindor shirt. I guess we'll start with the Mets. How you feeling after Correa goes to Minnesota?
I just disappointed. I can't say I'm mad because obviously it's a different era of Mets baseball, so it's not cheapness or incompetence like we're used to over the decades where you'd be furious with the team. How could they let this happen? But it's frustrating because he was the final piece, we were told. And boy, this team really looked like it was ready to take a major step forward with one of the top 5 players in baseball, and then he's taken away. I'm a little confused because, again, I don't want to sit here and be like spoiled, like we should be able to buy every player and have an all-star at every position. But one of the benefits of having Steve Cohen is that there's really no budget. He's blown past the luxury tax threshold, and it ends up being not wanting to part with $7 million a year. Because what was the difference? $42.5 million over 6 years, difference between the Twins and the Mets offer. And I understand that's an additional $30 million with the tax, but you were willing to give him 6. So obviously you were willing to have him on your team and risk going 6 years. So it was really only about the money, which I thought wasn't an issue. So all of a sudden now the budget comes into effect. So I still haven't gotten a straight answer on why he drew the line here. But at the same time, I get it because he is a player that could get hurt very soon. But boy, in the immediate future with an old Verlander and an old Scherzer, a win-now team, I'm not really worried about Correa breaking down in 26 or 27. I'm thinking about trying to win a championship in 23, 24, and 25.
Yeah, I think the next move here is to pivot to Trey Mancini, or, maybe next offseason Machado is an option. Obviously, Ohtani is an option, although, he's more of a DH pitcher than not a third baseman. I think they'll pivot somewhere else. I'm not in panic mode, but no, I hear what you're saying because you want to win now. You don't care about 6 years if his ankle breaks down. If you won 2 World Series, that's irrelevant at that point.
But here's what it comes down to is you're coming off a 101 win season. And in many ways, you've improved. I think Verlander's an upgrade from DeGrom because he'll make more than 11 starts, right? You bring Diaz back. I think Alvarez is going to hit at the catcher's position. He was the number 1 prospect. You've improved this rotation beyond Verlander and Scherzer with Quintana. I'm not going to get crazy. We're not trying to go from 60 wins to 100. We're trying to go from 101 to just maybe 102 and win this division and not have to worry about the wild card. And then we know the crapshoot that the playoffs are. So right now it's just trying to win this division and not have to worry about the wild card. And I still feel comfortable they can do that.
You ever find yourself talking sports on the Rangers call? Like, do you ever just you're doing it all day as your job? Are you ever Igor with the save, and Correa signed a 6-year deal with the Twins? What do you think, Dave?
All right. Well, it's very funny you say that, and I wish Dave was here to back this up. Every once in a while, I'll make an observation like, I don't like the shootout. It's a glorified skills competition, or would you pull the goaltender with a 2-man advantage and get a 3-man advantage? And Dave will say to me, all right, talk show Don, let's get back to the game. Like, he doesn't want to deal with that. He wouldn't allow it to happen. He's just like, listen, let's stick to the game. Let's not start debating. And then Dave will say something like, it was a couple of years ago. It was late in the season. The Rangers were out of it, but they were playing the Penguins, and the Penguins were still battling for something. And Dave goes, with the Rangers not needing the game, just to knock out Pittsburgh, why don't they pull the goaltender here in a tie game? try to win it in regulation. And I'm like, whoa, Dave, that sounds like you want to debate like it's talk radio. Let's get back to the game. So it's just it's funny you say that because it is kind of a joking thing that Dave and I have during the broadcast.
Well, it's funny because last night, obviously, the game ended in a shootout, which you kind of mentioned it already. And I personally, I'm one of those fans where I hate it. I do. I don't get it, especially when you consider you go to the playoffs, the most important games of your season. And those games don't get settled in shootouts, but we changed the rules for the regular. I'm sorry. I still cannot get behind it. I get it. Everyone wants a winner. God forbid the team ends in a tie or game ends in a tie. I can't stand it. What is your alternate solution to the shootout? Are you very much as happy with ending in a tie? Both team gets points.
I would have no problem with a tie. I don't understand why people freak out over ties. I got somebody that I work with, one of our executive producers at ESPN is like, I would rather lose than tie. I'm like, you're a moron. A tie is better than a loss. It's different grades, right? You rather win, right. But if you're going to lose, I'd rather tie. Get a point. Point still, and you still get the point, but you go back to Saturday, right? And Saturday was an amazing game, tremendous atmosphere, very evenly played. It wouldn't make sense to me if that game had gone to a shootout. Listen, I didn't want to see the Devils score and win the game in overtime, but if that game had gone to a shootout, it would have been an injustice, right? Because it was so evenly played and so much fun to watch. Last night, kind of the same thing, although I think the Rangers were the better team for a good portion of it, especially in the first period, but you know what I mean. What's wrong with a tie? All right, you played hard, you finish in a tie, and you get your point, you go home, and now the skills competition. And even though from a tiebreaker standpoint, the win is devalued for tiebreakers, still, it seems weird that an extra point goes to a team, and it's not about defense, it's not about checking, it's not about being a heavy team. It's just my skill player is better than your goaltender on that particular moment. So I can't stand it. But it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. As far as an alternative, I wish there was a way that we can extend the 3-on-3. Maybe come get a dry scrape, play an additional 3 minutes. I know the ice conditions, especially in some arenas, that may not work out as well. But if there was a way to kind of extend the 3-on-3, which I think is fun and thrilling and exciting, if they could make that work, that would be, I think, a much better alternative than what we have now.
Yeah, definitely agree with that, honestly. And just because of the fact that it feels like that's the American side of at least sports that we see, where it can't end in a tie. Soccer matches end in a tie all the time. And I get it's a completely different situation. But regardless, the Rangers last night, they kind of exercised their demons from the Henrik Lundqvist night last year against, the Minnesota Wild back and forth games. It always seems like it's the former Rangers that come back home and somehow score against the Rangers. Like, again, Matt Zuccarello, another goal last night against the Rangers, and he did it on Hank night last year. But Rangers right now sitting in third. Tell me about this Rangers team. I mean, obviously they've come back around. They kind of started the season a little slow, whatnot. Now they're sitting third. They're at 53 points in a very, very tough division. What are you seeing from them? What do you like from them? Where are we going from here?
Well, you nailed it early on. There was a lot of inconsistency. It just didn't seem what team was going to show up. And I thought about this after they picked up the win or the point against the Devils on Saturday. That was exactly the midway point. 41 games played with 51 points. That puts them on pace for 102. That's comfortably a playoff team to me, even in this very interesting Metropolitan Division and Eastern Conference. And I thought, they could play better in the second half than they did in the first, because there were some lulls there. There were some tough times. You look at the bottom 3 teams in the league, right? I didn't look at it today, but it's, the Blackhawks are the worst team in the league, Columbus, Anaheim. What do all 3 of those teams have in common? They've all got wins against the Rangers. Like, there were times how did they lose to the Blackhawks 5-2? They got schooled by Columbus early in the season at the Garden. They were awful at home early in the season. So I think they can play better in the second half. Now that puts you in maybe you creep up to 106, 108 points. Maybe you're talking about winning the division again, being where you were last year. So I like where they are. We'll see what happens with this Kreider injury. Obviously, that's something that you got to be a little worried about. As of this recording, we don't know, but it doesn't look like it's good. I don't think we're going to have him probably the rest of the week. Maybe not until maybe the Boston game, I would think. I don't want to speculate, but it didn't look good, guys, that hit and him not being able to finish the game. And Gauthier, didn't finish the game either. But I like where this team is right now. The goaltending can be better. I think they're going to make a deal. They did last year. So I'm excited about this team. I feel really good about where this team is right now. And then once you get to the postseason, we'll see. But I feel really good moving forward with this team.
All right, Don Chris Drury La Greca, put on your GM hat now. Is there a name, a couple of targets? You know, we talk all the time about Patrick Kane on the show, but are there a few names that intrigue you here that the Rangers should go after?
Well, you just nailed it. I mean, it makes too much sense, Patrick Kane. Now, again, I don't know the heavy lifting with the salary cap. I would think Chicago maybe takes some money to make it work, make it fit. As far as the cap is concerned, he's a right winger. He can help on the power play. It just seems like it's a no-brainer, right? Chicago, they obviously don't want to gain any more points. They want to get that first overall pick, right? I hate to say tanking, but take a look at where they are. They've won a couple of games in a row, but they're not a good team. Taves is probably going to go as well. So why not jump in, be a part of that? That's the need, right? I mean, obviously everybody would love, extra this, extra that. I think the blue line is fine. I think that third pairing with Harper and Schneider have been terrific. So yeah, maybe a little depth there, but nothing that you would say is a need. You always love centers, but I think right now they're in good shape there. I think a right winger, Patrick Kane, just makes too much sense for me right now. It does. So I can't think of any other names that are popping in that seem as realistic as that. I talked to the people in Chicago where they were in town and I was out there that they didn't think anything would happen until probably closer to the deadline. So I think that's fine for the Rangers because it's not like they're any threat of completely dropping out of the playoffs. So yeah, that to me is the biggest target. It makes sense. It's Broadway. He's a ton of experience. He's got rings jingling and jangling. I mean, all the things that you want in a player just makes perfect sense.
And I think it helps the fact that he's already played with one of the star players on the Rangers as well, too, Artemi Panarin, which, I mean, to have a combo like that, I just feel, like you said, it kind of makes just all the sense in the world. But in my mind, it now comes down to how much are you willing to give up to get that rental player? And that's what Drury did such a great job of last year, where he didn't really give up too much, and yet he improved the squad so much. And honestly, that's what I feel at least helped propel them to where they got last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, you're talking picks, you're talking young defense. I would think that's what Chicago would be looking for. Earlier in the season, I would say, maybe you'd be willing to give up Vitaly Kravtsov, but now he's kind of coming into his own. I kind of want to see where this is going to end up. He's getting a chance to play in the top six. He's contributing. He's looking like he's belonging. So I'm not as hyped to give him up just yet because I think long-term he could be a nice answer to that position. But, Chicago's not going to give him away for nothing. But at the same time, I don't think they'll hold the Rangers hostage either, because they're not going to want anything on the Rangers roster that can actually help them win games, because they don't want to accumulate too many points in the standings, but they've got a complete rebuild. So Chris has been great. Like you said, the additions of Petrano and Kopp last year were, let's face it, the reason, and probably the reason for the slow start, because they both left during the offseason. But I've got a lot of faith in Chris. He'll pull the right trigger on this.
What is your story? Now, you're from Jersey. Did you grew up a Devils fan? Are you still a Devils fan? What's your story?
How could I be?
Yeah.
Like I love it. It's like, even in promoting, I was going to be on. Jake, you do know Don's a Devil fan. How could I possibly be a Devil fan anymore? Seriously, I listen. I grew up in Jersey. I was introduced to, fell in love with hockey when the Devils came here. My girlfriend, now wife, was a season ticket holder. My best friend was a Devil fan. My first game was, I think it was, I know, February 22nd, 1987, Devils Islanders at the Meadowlands. 6-0 Islander win. I think a goal went off of Claude Loisel's head into the net. Me and my friend bouncing around, sitting in different places in what was like a half-empty arena at the time, and that's how I fell in love with hockey. I'm not going to apologize for that. But when you make certain decisions, when you decide you want to have a career, and when I was offered a chance to do pre and post for the Rangers in 2005, I wasn't going to turn it down. I love hockey. I love being around hockey. And then getting a chance to back up Kenny on play-by-play in 2008, that's when it really started to be like, I'm traveling with this team. I'm staying in the same hotel with them. I'm getting to know them. Scott Gomez, who was actually a friend of mine, ended up becoming a Ranger. It just, and then in 2012, that conference final, I was on the boards. I was the third announcer. They would throw to me coming out of commercial break. What's the ice conditions? How does this look? How does that look? It's just like the rink announcer kind of thing. And I was at the net that Henrik scored. And there's a celebration. They actually came to the glass where I was. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is the team I grew up following. That I fell in love with hockey with. And I should be happy for them that they're going to the Stanley Cup final. But work's over. Rangers are out. There's no more games to do. And I'm not going to go on Bruce Beck's show on Sunday to talk about the Devils. They have me talk about the Rangers. You know, we're not going to be talking much Devils on the Michael Kay show, but when the Rangers were in it, we're talking more hockey. And I'm like, I'm disappointed. You know, so right then and there, at that point, it wasn't like, whoa, my favorite team that I grew up with is going to the Stanley Cup final. It's, well, the team I work for is out. And then getting a chance to call a Stanley Cup final game 1 against the Kings 2 years later, being a part of the run last year. It's just, I love the Rangers. I love hockey. I love being around this team. They treat me well. When I was sick in the hospital with COVID last February, you know, Chris Drury's texting me, asking me how I'm doing. I mean, it's over. You know, I'm not getting any. You know, Tommy Fitzgerald's not texting me, asking me how I'm doing. Right? It just becomes a no-brainer. That just, here's the analogy I use. People don't want to buy it. See if you guys do. Well, what if I played hockey, and I love the Toronto Maple Leafs growing up in Toronto, living and dying with the Leafs, and I play hockey and I get drafted by the Canadians. Do I still root for the Maple Leafs, or do I am all in on the Canadians? I'd be all in on the Canadians, right?
Right.
That's what happened to me. I got drafted by the Rangers, and you know, this is the team I root for, and I want all 3 local teams to do well. More hockey to talk about. I'm thrilled that all 3 of these teams are pretty good. But the Don, you're a Devil fan. I'm sorry, it's over. It has to be over.
I thought that you were going to take a little stab at John Tavares there with the drafted by the Islanders, but grew up as a Maple Leaf fan. But it's okay though. Listen, that story is over and done with. But
you make decisions. Like I don't want to like take up too much of your time here, but like, Bill Parcells, we had Bill Parcells on the K show the other day, and he talks about how the Giants are in his blood. He'll always be a Giant. He loves the Giants since he was a kid. Bill, you were talking to the Falcons when you won the Super Bowl in '86. You know, you bailed on the Giants after they won the Super Bowl in 1990 because of your heart condition. But then when you came back, you know, you ended up coaching the Jets and the Cowboys, for God's sake. And because business and pleasure don't mix. Like, there's things that are in your heart, and there's things that are in your head, and there's things that are in your bank account, you know. So you make decisions, but once you make those decisions, and I'm a kind of person that's all in, so I'm all in on this Ranger team. It's been, you know, 15 years I've been doing play-by-play, over close to 20 years of doing the pre and post. So there's another life that I've moved on from.
which I think is fair enough. I think that's how you got to operate, honestly, in that point. So anyone that listens to the K show, honestly, I listen to it quite frequently. One of my favorite segments since COVID actually has become the Daily Dawn segment. And you do a bang up job with it. There are some times where I disagree with you, and listen, that's all part of the game, I feel like. But
Sure.
I've got a little segment that I want to run with you in honor of the Daily Dawn segment. It's called Who You Taking Out. So I
like that.
So I've got a few topics here. Just
all right,
off the top of your head, of the 3, who you taking out. So we'll start off with an easy one. We'll go Michael Kay, Peter Rosenberg, Dave Rothenberg. Who you taking out?
Well, because I love to work with, or just in life?
Just in life.
Oh, in life. Wow. Geez. I mean, that's a tough question. You know what? I'm going to say Michael, just because it'll drive everybody crazy. We don't have a lot in common. He's a Yankee guy. I'm a Met guy. He's a basketball guy. I'm a hockey guy. I enjoy food. He eats the same 3 things all the time. I love music. He just loves, you know, he rotates Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen. He doesn't has any remembrance at all of any movies he saw. Meanwhile, I'll watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on a loop. You know, we have nothing. So I'll take Michael out just because we almost have 0 in common.
Fair enough. You mentioned music as well. So how about this one? Anthrax, Pantera, Metallica. Who you taking out?
This is going to drive a lot of people out of their minds because I love all three bands, but I think I take out Pantera. Now, listen, you can make the case Pantera is the best. Not Metallica. Metallica is the best, and that Pantera is better than Anthrax. I get that, but and I saw Pantera. I used to intern at K Rock, and Z Rock was also there at the time in 1990. So I remember seeing Pantera back in the early 90s. So I'm a fan of all three. You're not touching Metallica, but I've got a special place in my heart for Anthrax. I started to become friendly with Frank Bello, their bassist. I saw them with I was at Iron Maiden when Scott Ian's car was turned over and set on fire. Like I just Joey Belladonna. Joey Belladonna almost came on my college radio show 30 years ago. I talked to him on the phone. I went to pick him up in Nyack to be on my radio show at Rampo College, but it started raining and he didn't wait outside anymore, so he didn't get to come on the show. So the point is, I've got a real special place in my heart for Anthrax, so I'm going to take out Pantera.
Fair enough. All right, I got one more for you. You got the 2007 New York Football Giants championship. You had the 2000 Stanley Cup Devils championship, and you have the 1986 Mets championship. Who you taking out?
Wow.
Can't be the Mets. Cannot be.
No. Well, listen. The 2000 Devils I'm going to take out for this reason. All right. Even if I was still a Devil fan, I would take out the 2000 Devils because that's the one cup. They won it in Dallas.
Yeah.
So I was not there. I was there in 2003 when they beat the Ducks. I was there in 95 when they won the cup against Detroit. So that's an easy one. 2007, I was there. I was the helmet catch. Come on, that's just too good. That's great sports. And in 86, that was the first championship I ever experienced. The Giants ended up winning the Super Bowl a few months later, but the first ever championship that I ever experienced as a fan was 86. So we're not touching 86. We're not touching 07. Goodbye, 2000 Devils. Easy answer.
Yeah, I think that was probably the easiest of the three there, and hopefully we'll have another Mets title to celebrate here.
You
this
think?
year,
Maybe.
next year.
That'd be nice.
I still love this team. I thought that was kind of a luxury to have Correa. I do think they need another bat, whether it's a Mancini, they trade for someone, maybe they trade for Ohtani. I think they'll wait, but one more bat will put them over the top. But right now, I think this is still a contender. Escobar is not a bum. Beatty, a full year, is not a bum. They have options. Alvarez,
listen, Alvarez was thrown into an impossible situation, right? I mean, pennant race, postseason, first experience. That 0 for 8 to start his career is very unfair. It's top prospect. Beatty's a top prospect. If these guys hit to what they believe they can do, then your problem solved, right? But nobody wants to believe that young kids can reach their potential, especially if you're a Met fan. Yankees are going through the same thing. Everybody wants them to get stars, but they're hoping their young players like Volpe and Dominguez can become great Yankees. Well, why can't Beatty and Alvarez become the next, great players for the Mets? So if those guys hit to what they were drafted and how they projected out to be as prospects, the Mets are golden. But let's see if that happens.
Yeah, we got to see a full spring training and see what they can do. 20 plus years of the K show. Did you think this ride would go as long as it's been going?
No. I wasn't even sure about the station. I mean, we were a startup station. Things started out real slow. And Michael doing Yankees and doing the show. I just always felt early on that this event would eventually run out, right? He'll end up leaving, he'll quit. So then once we started gaining momentum, what was it? In 2012, we converted over to FM. That's when you started to see that we gained traction and the ratings started to grow. And then I really felt comfortable. But first 4 or 5 years, it was like at any moment, he's gonna decide he can't do both. So once we got past that hump, then I'm not surprised. But if you had asked me when we first started, no, there was no shot.
How do we know how much longer? Andrew Marchand's writing the story in the Post about K's future. obviously you don't need to comment on that, but how much longer do you think this is going? Because you're both busy guys. You're traveling. It's, how much longer you got?
Well, the thing is that we both have young families, right? His
Mhm.
kids are 10 and 8. My twins just turned 5. It changes the perspective a lot. You're trying to carve out time. So I can't speak for other people. I want to continue to do it forever. I love it. It's so much fun. I've been at the station. September will be 22 years. The K Show's been on for over 20 years together. I love working with Peter. We've been doing that now for 7 years. So I can't answer for Michael or Peter. I really can't. All I can say is that, I don't want it to ever.
By the way, how about last night? I mean, Sam Rosen, I thought he kept saying Capri Sun, and I was getting thirsty for Kaprizov. Is that his name? Kaprizov?
Kaprizov.
Did you find yourself sounding like Capri Sun, right? Or no?
No, Kaprizov didn't flow off the tongue when he first came into the league, and now he's become so good. But no, Capri Sun is what you think.
It sounded close. I was thinking of like middle school lunch bag. Like,
I didn't think about that. I'm glad we're not playing them anymore. Now you put that in my head. I don't know what because it's weird when you're doing play-by-play. It's one thing when you're just having general conversation about players, but when you have to say their names really fast, you're kind of surprised what comes out. Like, who was the goaltender in Carolina the other day? Kochenkov. Kochekov. I'm sorry, it was Kochekov. And I kept saying Kochenkov. I kept throwing like an N in there. And Dave's like, you're not saying it's Kochenkov. I was like, yeah, but I got to say it quick. I don't have the chance to go Kochekov. Because by the time I kind of slowly enunciate it, the puck's on the other side of the ice, so. And then it gets in your head, and I'm like, oh, don't say Kolchenkov, it's Kolchekov.
That must happen nightly because there's so many long names. Like, you have to really hammer those down and study them and talk to the coach or whoever's in charge of that with the PR of the team of how to pronunciate it.
Yeah, and it's just like, and sometimes it's just like, even Shesterkin, sometimes it's that because he's our goaltender, I'll just say, Igor. It just flows better. Because when you're kind of like going at a certain pace, these names could be like speed bumps. You're going 60 miles per hour, and then you got to slow down to say the name, and the game just doesn't dictate that kind of pace. So, yeah, I'm trying to. There's some names that are just like, there was somebody the other day. It's like, oh my, don't play, please don't play. And then and he's like, it's just and then there's some that are so easy. Like the defenseman in Montreal, Jack Eye. But it's fine. His name's Jack Eye. I kept having to remind myself, please say I. Don't slip and say off. Say I.
I need that Freudian slip. No.
But if you look at this, did you see the spelling of his name?
Oh, no.
Look it up. You would never think it's Jack Eye. So when I'm preparing for the game, and he's the third, he's a good player, but he's the third pair defenseman. And listen, I haven't seen a lot of Montreal this year. They're not very good. It was like, thank God it's Jack Eye. Take a look it up. It's Arbor Jack Eye, and it begins with an X. His name begins with an X. It's like just somebody threw up letters, and I'm like, how did they come up with Jack Eye? But believe it's so much fun. So
Xhekaj, only in hockey.
How? It's like Brady Shea, right? But like, yeah. We didn't have to worry about Brady Shea because he was our guy. But I remember everywhere I'd go around the NHL, didn't matter how good Brady Shea became, the PA announcer or the out of town play-by-play guy. How do you pronounce this?
Brady Shea.
Brady Sky? Is it Sky? And would you believe I still get people asking me, how do we pronounce Zibanejad? I'm like, the guy's a star. He's been in the league forever. Really?
Come on.
Oh, but you know what? I'm sure I probably ask and they roll their eyes about their players.
Hey, listen, that's part of the thing.
You have a favorite?
How do you not know Arbor Jack Eye? What's the matter with you?
How dare you? How dare you?
This name in the sport. You have a favorite rant that you've been on? You've had some classics, the crane pull, dumping your water over yourself. Like, do you look, because I mean, they're legendary rants. And as a guy who, got in this industry, Mike and the Mad Dog, listen to and there's got to be one rant that sticks out the most that you like.
Probably
that you'll watch
crane pull. The Ed Crane pull was fun.
Yeah.
Because, well, a lot of it is, I don't even know what I say half the time. I almost like black out like old school. Like, what did I even say? I got to look back and watch it. But
now
like
that
Ed
happens in the
Kranepool-
moment, right? Like you don't
Oh,
prepare.
you can believe me or not. People think it's contrived, made up. It's not. I never know 30 seconds before I do it that it's going to happen. I'm not a good actor. I can't possibly fake it. And listen, the reaction that I get from them, I do it a lot more often than once or twice a year. If it was fake, right, I would do it more often. But I swear they're legit. But the crane pool is fun for a couple of reasons. The main reason is why that's the one people talk to me about, and it was one of my favorite players growing up. I don't know if he's ever heard it or knows about it, but it's amazing the reaction I get from it. Plus, it also shows how generational it is because I'll get tweets from people. I love the Ed Kranepool rant, and they'll spell Kranepool with a C, so they had no idea who this guy was before my rant. And when I Michael laughs at it too. I started running down all the great players for the Yankees, and I wanted to say Gleyber Torres, but I ended up saying who was the other player that never really made it for them? I mentioned his name, and everybody's like, "Why did you mention his name?" And I can't think of it now off the top of my head. Also, I thought with a T. Well, anyway, but it's just funny. I'm giving Greg Bird. I'm throwing out Aaron Judge and Gleyber Torres, and I threw I threw Torres out. I was like, why did you throw Ronald Torres out? Listen, at the time it made sense. It was on the lower end, and now it's like it's funny that he was mentioned. Even Bird getting mentioned among that list is kind of a joke now. But that's easily my favorite.
It's nothing like throwing out the Pythagorean theorem out of nowhere. That's how you know these aren't scripted rants, because I'm telling you, there's no way in your mind you said, I'm going to write out, let's go on a tangent here and say Pythagorean theorem. And it's not just
I can't even say it now. Pythagorean theorem says, I hate analytics. And listen, and I love Steve Valiquette, and he starts giving he's like, please don't let it infiltrate hockey. It's already getting into football. It's already it's ruined baseball for me in a way. So hopefully we can keep it out of hockey for at least a little while longer.
Your lips to God's ears.
Some of those stats I'll never be able to understand. Well, Don La Greca, you could catch him on the Michael Kay Show on ESPN Radio New York, 98.7 FM every day. You catch him on ESPN Radio for play-by-play for the Rangers, as well as the pre and post game. And you could download his podcast, Game Misconduct. Next time we'll have you on. I guess I'll have to wrap next time, and we'll go from there.
Ready? I want to hear this.
Thanks, Don, for coming on. We appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.